Hi, CMC. I'm Dr. Natasha Crandall, and I'm an educational consultant in the field of children's media. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about me and what I do, and I'll also give you different ideas as to ways that you can work with an educational consultant for your properties. I have my background in school psychology, which is basically the blend of education and psychology. And while most school psychologists work in school systems to help students figure out different ways to learn better for their needs, my focus is in children's television and figuring out better ways for kids to learn better through media. So to show you a little bit of background, these are the shows I worked on before starting my company. And here's a few that I've worked on since. But you can find more about different shows that I've worked on my website. So what exactly does an educational consultant do? Which is a great question. So my training is for ages 0 to 18, but most of my time is spent in preschool, with a smaller portion in ages 6 to 11, mostly because preschool is where I'm more needed. So most preschool shows need a curriculum or want a curriculum, and 6 to 11s tend to go mostly towards just solely entertainment without an educational backbone to it. So while all shows need to be entertaining and funny and engaging, preschool shows with that backbone of education can provide a little guidance to kids as well, because they are at this really impressionable age where they are learning from television and mimicking what they see on television. 6 to 11s learn from everything as well, but they're less likely to model the specific acts and actions of the characters that they love on screen. So for preschool, we have to really look as to what the characters are doing to ensure that we're doing more good than harm, which I think is why preschool has so much curriculum in there and consultants needed for them. So the four main things that I do are curriculum development, educational consultation, diversity consultation, and formative research. So for curriculum development, that starts with the Pitch Bible. So oftentimes I'm asked, people bring the Pitch Bible to me and say, we are developing this show and here's the characters, here's the story ideas. And sometimes they'll come to me with a curriculum in mind, and sometimes they're not quite sure what the curriculum should be. I have worked with a lot of different groups in the US, as well as the UK, as well as the Middle East. And one of the biggest questions is, well, if you're a US consultant, can you work on UK or Middle Eastern or Canadian shows? The answer is yes, because child development is the same and learning is the same. You have to sound out letters before you can put them together to read words. You have to walk before you can run. And the child development is the same no matter what country you're in. Children tend to crawl around the same age no matter what country they're in, walk the same age, run, think about things, think abstractly. So child development is the same, we just have different terms for it. So in the US, we might call it preschool learning or preschool development. In the UK, you might call it your foundational stage. But when you look at what the elements are, they're very aligned with each other. There's no gaps, or there's not one thing that one group is focusing on more than another country would. So child development and curriculum isn't really that much different no matter where you go. But the topics are, so while a show might be a math show or a literacy show or a social emotional show, that's where the differences lie into what the different aspects are of the curriculum. So when I look at a Pitch Bible, I tend to kind of look at it first before asking what the curriculums that you guys had in mind, because I want to see what jumps out to me. And sometimes there's something very clear that jumps out to me. And sometimes it's a little more vague and it needs to be developed a little bit more depending on what the curriculum is. So at times I might go, yeah, that's your curriculum. What you thought it was, it's clearly in here, it's well laid out. And sometimes I might go, yeah, it's in there, but there's this other thing that's really strong that's jumping out at me that I think it's already well suited for this show. Other times people will come to me and say, what's the big new thing going on in preschool right now? At one point it was STEM or STEAM. And then it turned to more social emotional things like growth mindset or things like that. So I kind of have my thumb on the pulse of preschool as well as media to know what's going on in both worlds, to see where the new groundbreaking curriculum could be. So when I'm writing a curriculum, sometimes people ask for just a statement, which is basically a couple of paragraphs, maybe a page or two, to kind of just put in the show Bible, to let networks know that this is the curriculum that's going to fit with it. And other times I'll write a bigger, more fuller one, maybe 5 pages or so. Sometimes it can be longer, depending on what the production needs. So for a writer's Bible, it might be much lengthier to kind of help the writers understand, if this is the curriculum, how can I instill it into the different episodes? How can the different characters speak to these different aspects of the curriculum? For example, if it was a STEAM one, maybe you have 5 or 6 different characters, and maybe they all have different aspects of the STEAM that you want to involve in it all together. Or maybe there's one main character, but you want to hit different aspects of STEAM, for example, throughout. So that writer's Bible or that fuller curriculum would really explain how the curriculum is going to be laid out in the show, in across the whole series, as well as in different episodes. From there, I will do educational consultation, which is kind of my catch-all for everything, really. It's anytime you ask me to look at something, I kind of call that educational consultation. So maybe that's a pitch Bible, but it's definitely scripts as well. So that's really where I'm kind of looking at things and giving you my opinion as a psychologist as to what kids are going to take away from it, what they're going to lean towards, where their interest is going to be most in your script. I'll look at things outline, first draft, second draft. I'll look at animatics. I'll look at final animation. Also, a lot of show development happens here as well, where I'm reviewing the Bible and kind of ensuring that whatever the curriculum is, it's kind of supported everywhere in the Bible, not just in those 1 or 2 pages on your curriculum section, but that it really feels like it's a well buttoned up Bible that it wholly speaks to what the show is about. I will also do diversity consultation. And as you all know, this has been the biggest change, at least in my area, in the past year. I've always kind of done diversity consultation. I've always commented on different characters' races and what I think they would say or do versus what they wouldn't do based on their race. But now I'm just, marketing it differently. So with diversity consultation, I'm consulting on a few projects right now as for the Muslim characters, because I'm a Muslim and a Pakistani American. But I also work on different shows that don't necessarily have that background, where I'll pull in outside consultants. So for a show, for example, that has maybe 2 to 3 different ethnicities in different characters, I might say, well, this script looks good, but this aspect of the script is I'm not sure about. It's raising a little flag to me, and I want to run it by another outside consultant. So I have a team of different consultants from different backgrounds who I can pull in and have them look at a section of the script or a whole script, with the production company aligned as well. It's all done as a team with the production company as well as me and the outside consultants, where they will all look at the script from different points of view. And then I will consolidate all those notes, the educational notes, as well as the diversity notes, into one document to give back to the production group so that they can see what the different consultants were. It might go to 2 to 3 different consultants if there's 2 to 3 different characters with different diverse backgrounds. And then I'll consolidate that all and give it to the production group to help align characters and storylines appropriately for the different groups. Then the other thing I do is formative research. So this is focus groups with kids. And this is, really where I got my start, was doing research with children. And I have developed my own system of how I will collect data with kids. pre-COVID, I would always go out to schools. It would be either preschools or possibly after school programs for older kids to find out what they thought about it. So this is when I might take a script and we'll make it into a storybook format, and then I'll take the storybook out to a school, or maybe it's an animatic. Colored animatic is always better for preschool, and we'll take the animatic out to kids and see what they think. And sometimes it's final animation to maybe inform the second season of your show. Maybe there's 2 different types of episodes you've had, and we want to see what kids take away or what they like from them. So I might test 2 different episodes with kids to find out, to inform a second season. So throughout this process, I will bring in some outside research assistants to help me collect the data with kids. And I like to have 1 assistant per child. And this way I can collect really clean data. So with young kids, I typically test them in a group format when I'm showing them the show. And then I break out and we do individual interviews. And this way I can get really clean understanding of what kids like or don't like. So if they all say that they like the dog in the episode, and I have it individually based on 20 kids, I really know that the dog is what they're loving. But if I have it in a group format where I ask them what they like and one kid says the dog and then they all repeat that, it's a little harder to decipher if that's truly what's popping or if it's something that they're repeating. For older kids, they're much more willing to disagree with the other person in the room and give their own opinions. So for older kids, I typically do research in a group format where I ask them group questions and then we have a discussion. And that way I can also get things a little bit deeper and find out really what's going on with the show rather than what they liked or didn't like. So with my formative research, when I'm developing the research study, I will help with the storybook, helping to create the storybook if it's based on a draft 1. So I'll cut the script into different pages, and then I will help to create the image that the artist needs to draw, and along with the text that will be said with that image. So here's a quick example of a Peter Rabbit episode where I kind of indicated the facial expressions, where people were standing in the scene, and what was happening in the scene. So this way, when I read the story to the kids, I read that text below in that white section along with the picture. Then the other thing I'll do is review the artwork. So we need to make sure that the artwork has the right facial expressions, the right views, the right images. So here on the left is another Peter Rabbit one that the artist had drawn it from a camera angle way up high. And so you're kind of looking down on the scene. It might be a little hard to see, but this is Mr. Todd down here at the bottom with the characters up in the trees. And with the camera angle way up, kids don't feel like they're part of it. They kind of it's kind of like they're watching what's happening rather than experiencing what's happening. So if you look on the right with the bubble guppies, the camera is right where the kids are, where the bubble guppies are. So you kind of feel like you're part of that campfire situation. But in the right side, no one's really looking to camera. If you just brought Mr. Grouper's big eyes, if his pupils were up a little, then he's looking right at you. And that's when the kids feel like they're most engaged. So I'll work with the artist to create the artwork that really will work specifically for that age group to pull them in as much as possible. So along with my formative research, as well as the consultation, even if we don't tend to research every episode, which isn't quite done as much anymore, it can still give us ideas for future shows and episodes. So the other thing that I want to end on is the big question of when do you use a consultant and how much does it cost? I think that's probably the biggest question. How much does it cost and when do we involve you? So I'm involved really wherever is needed. I can be involved in development. I can be involved at the beginning of this show once it's greenlit and picked up to start reviewing things. I typically like to be involved earlier rather than later. So sometimes people have come to me going, we have 10 episodes written. And that's when I kind of look at things and go, oh my gosh, if there's something major going on here, then we have to go back and revise 10 episodes. If there's something really not working or if there's something just not quite making sense. So the earlier, the better, so that we're all on the same page from the beginning. In terms of budget, I mean, this is another really hard question. I don't really have a specific number that I can tell people it will cost this much or that much. But what I can do is kind of give a proposal with static amounts saying, you know, this is how much I charge for a script or an outline. And it's based also on how long the shows are. So if it's a 22-minute episode, it will be more expensive than an 11-minute or a 5-minute or a 7-minute. So I will break things out. I mean, I have an hourly rate, but I'll also break things out, and it's easier for your line producer to kind of figure out if we want someone like me to look at an episode at outline and first draft, what's that going to cost? Typically, those are really where I step in the most, is outline and first draft, because if there's something not working outline wise, we can fix it earlier. And then I'll also put in the outline review, you know, here's where the curriculum could come into play. But then I also look at first drafts to ensure that the language makes sense in terms of the curriculum, in terms of what kids like and understand. But then again, I can look at it at any stage that works. So the ideal relationship for me is when there is more communication. So when I was working at Nickelodeon and I was in every meeting, I knew which notes of mine were more valuable than the others because we were constantly in the same rooms. As an outside consultant now, I tend to give notes and not hear back. And so I like to check in and say, which notes really work for you? Or are there things that I'm hitting on that are just not important to you at this time? So really it's about communication, finding out what you need and the best way for me to help you. You know, I look at my job as a as kind of an outside voice going, here's my opinion, and I'm going to give you my opinion because that's what you're hiring me for. You're not really hiring me to agree with you. You're hiring me to find out what I think. So I'll give you what I think, and it's up to you to use what you'd like to use and discard what you want. There's only a few instances where I'll push back, and that's really when it's, you know, a harm to a child. So if you're lighting a match on screen and showing us how to do it, I'm definitely going to push back. But if you don't like this note because it doesn't really fit with the character, then I'm totally fine with skipping it. I'm always available for more conversations and more discussions to figure out ways that I can be of the most help to different production groups. So I think, you know, looking at myself as not the person who's telling you what to do, but the person who's giving you my opinion is the best way for me to approach things. And I'm always available via email, regardless. If people have one question here or there, or lots of questions, we can always set meetings as well. So I think that, you know, sums up what I do and how I do it, and gives you a little bit idea of how you can use an educational consultant in your production. I hope that was really helpful. And hopefully I will meet a lot of you soon after COVID. All right, bye-bye.